Welcome back. Still tuned in to Salam Media, and the show is News and Views. And you're still with me, Salalo Makwidi. And as I mentioned before we went to that ad break, we'll be kicking off today's show with an update from Brazilian solidarity activist Thiago Ávila, who's part of the Freedom Flotilla and was part of this Handala that I think we spoke to him about, where they were literally going off the coast of Palestine just to spread the message about justice and freedom and to stop the blockade on Palestine. And Tiago right now is joining us on a very, very early morning in Brazil. Tiago, thank you so much for joining us on Salam Media. Really appreciate you waking up this early and chatting to us.
Good morning, Salalo. Good morning, everyone from Salam Media. It's a pleasure being here with you again.
Pleasure's all ours. I think let's start with a recap, right? For maybe our listeners that didn't catch the first interview that we had with you about this Handala and the Freedom Flotilla in general, the mandate of it, and why it was so important for you guys to undertake this journey. So let's track back a bit and speak on that.
Okay, so for just to reminder for everyone in Salam Media, we are part of a coalition of national campaigns spread through many countries that tries since 2007, 2008 to put the spotlight on the illegal siege that Israel puts Gaza since 2007. So the first missions of the Freedom Flotilla were sending boats towards Gaza to put the spotlight on it and show that Israel was committing a war crime to put Gaza in an illegal siege. And so these missions had the opportunity to go to Gaza, to spread awareness, to talk to the organizations, to take food and aid and be of assistance of any kind. But after a few missions that actually got to Gaza, Israel started attacking those missions. And by attacking the boats, by confiscating the boats, the humanitarian aid, by arresting people, kidnapping people to Israel, then deporting them after a few days of arrest. And in 2010, we had a huge flotilla with more than 7 boats, more than 10,000 tons of food and aid, humanitarian aid. The Israeli attack killed 10 members of the Freedom Flotilla. And since then, no other flotilla managed to get to Gaza. But nonetheless, the flotilla kept on going in a non-violent direct action of civil disobedience to show the world that Israel was committing a war crime and still is committing a war crime against the people of Gaza, because it's not Israel's right to control those maritime waters. And of course, it's not their right to attack international groups of solidarity, humanitarian groups that are trying to show solidarity with the Palestinian people. So the Freedom Flotilla in 2024, we had 2 missions. The first mission was scheduled for April. It was called Break the Siege. We had 3 huge vessels that were taking 1,000 people from over 30 countries with 5,500 tons of humanitarian food and aid to Gaza in a moment that the genocide is very concerning for everyone in the world. But we had technical problems, we had bureaucratic problems that Israel put pressure on the Guinea-Bissau government that took away our flags, because the United States and Germany and other countries were putting pressure on the Turkish government not to let us sail. And eventually we didn't manage to sail in April. It was very frustrating. Then we had a second mission that left on May the 1st from Oslo on Norway and went for more than 20 ports in Europe, going around Europe from the top until it went into the Mediterranean Sea, and then it was getting close to our way towards Gaza, because we were preparing to go on our last leg from Malta to Gaza, and that last 3 legs I was on board the Handala. And while we were there, we had a lot of technical problems. And that's where we made this interview, Celaro, because we were preparing for our last journey of the Handala towards Gaza. And we unfortunately had a technical problem that now is the time to report. But as a recap, that's what we had. The first mission on April with 1,000 people from 30 countries on 3 huge vessels, a huge load, a huge cargo of humanitarian aid. And we had this second mission that was a small boat, but also they had humanitarian food and aid that was carrying less than 20 people, but from 14 different countries, on a grassroots mission from port to port, and we were preparing on a last leg. We still are preparing a last leg towards Gaza, but we had a technical problem that is now our duty to report, unfortunately.
And you have been on other Freedom Flotilla missions. If you can just give us insight on those, and the amount of preparation that goes into it, psychologically, being ready for a mission that could essentially be your last, because as you mentioned, Israeli forces very, very violent, very provocative, and making sure that they don't regard anyone, the lives of anyone who wants to help the people of Gaza in any way. You are seen as an enemy by them. Just give us insight on that, the mental preparation, and some of the other missions that you've been a part of.
It's very important to highlight that, actually, Celelo, because the Freedom Flotilla is part of a non-violent action and also a humanitarian action. Because right now, all the entrance for humanitarian to Gaza are closed. There's a symbolic amount of less than 30 trucks per day entering Gaza from the east, from Israel. And actually, the Rafah crossing has been destroyed since the invasion in June. From the north and from the east, there are settlers camping and doing electronic parties to wait for the trucks and destroy them and destroy their cargo. And from the west, there's a naval blockade to Gaza. And so there's almost no humanitarian aid getting into Gaza right now. So the Freedom Flotilla is connected with the desire of the majority of the people in the world that does not want to see a genocide, does not want to see forced starvation and famine that is happening right now. It's such a terrible situation. And of course, there are risks. We always say that the risk we take in the Freedom Flotillas is but a small fraction of the risk that the people in Gaza are suffering each day, with only identified 40,000 people killed already, 16,000 children. But we know that those were the identified people because we had tens of thousands more. So it's very important for us to say that we are not more courageous, and this mission is not even more risky than what people in Gaza are going through every single day. But nonetheless, it's an important mission, and we try to mobilize people knowing that the risk is very, very high because, like you said, the Zionist entity treat us as enemies, like they treat the UNRWA workers. That they 205 of them have already been killed since October, and like they treat medical workers and healthcare workers, like they treat journalists, like they treat everyone that is trying to show and put a spotlight on the genocide. So it's actually a very, very dangerous mission. And what we try to prepare people that applies for it on our Freedom Flotilla coalition is that this mission is connected to all the other missions of the global uprising. So every person can contribute in their own way. There's people doing demonstrations in the streets, people promoting boycott, divest, and sanctions, people camping and disrupting arm factories, people putting pressure on their government, people doing a lot of things, blocking boats, for example, that are trying to take cargo arms to Israel. So everyone is trying to do something. Everyone who is connected in solidarity with Palestine are trying to do something. And the Freedom Flotilla is a part of this global uprising in solidarity with Palestine, inspired by the Palestinian people, and that try to echo the voices of the Palestinian people. So what we try to prepare the person that wants to go on a Freedom Flotilla is first to be useful to the Palestinian cause, to be useful for the Palestinian liberation, to put a spotlight on this illegal siege, but also to end apartheid, to end genocide, to end ethnic cleansing, because it's not something from 10 months now. It's more than 76 years of genocide and ethnic cleansing that is structured an apartheid settler colonialist state, and that is based on the most racist and supremacist ideology of our generation, which is Zionism. So what we try to prepare people is that yes, there are risks on this mission. In order to diminish this risk, we try to always guarantee that our mission is a non-violent mission, because when we use non-violent techniques, it puts an even greater pressure on the oppressive force, that the more oppression they put on us, it's going to look worse for them. We try to organize with humanitarian agencies. We try to put pressure on multilateral organisms like the United Nations that has already confirmed that our mission has humanitarian purposes, that our cargo was inspected, and that by hindering the access of humanitarian aid, the Zionist entity, if attacking us, would be committing a war crime and would be disrespecting the last three United Nations Security Council resolutions, and also would be going against the last two declarations and statements of the International Court of Justice. So they would be committing another war crime. It would not be a surprise. They had already mentioned that they would attack us. They even mentioned the elite force that would attack us, the type of weaponry that they would use. So because they are genocidal as that, but we will go nonetheless. So we prepare people to go on this mission, knowing there are risks, but knowing of the historical importance of it, because we have to put ourselves on the line, because the lives of the Palestinian people and Palestinian families are not different from ours, and actually it's all connected. That's why we still keep going, although we have risks, of course.
Mm, mm. I want us to give us. I want you to give us a short update on that Handala that you were on. I think it was last month. The last time you and I spoke, you mentioned that facing some technical difficulties. What's the latest on that? And just a brief retrospection on it and the purpose of the mission, because already we knew that there's a blockade. There was no way you guys could enter Gaza, but you decided to go on and continue with this mission on the Handala. Just give us more insight on that and also an update on that mission.
Yeah, it's very important to mention that, because there are unjust laws, and the Zionist entity creates a lot of laws to rule and colonize Palestine. So we must not abide to those laws. We must abide to international law that says the occupation is illegal. And therefore, it's our duty to keep on going towards Gaza and try to get to Gaza, actually. And it's not that different from other nonviolent direct actions that happened in the past. For example, the struggle for the civil rights movement against the Jim Crow racist laws in the United States, or the independence of India with Gandhi and so many people. So the civil disobedience has this part to play that puts pressure on unjust laws and oppressive regimes to either change the laws or be even more in the spotlight of everyone else, be more exposed in their violence and their hatred. So it's important to keep on going, although we know the risks. And the Handala mission had this part, and we still have this part, that we go from port to port, doing grassroots movement, going with local solidarity movements in every port with dock, and until we are ready for our next last leg towards Gaza. But the thing is, Celero, is that the life on a small boat like the Handala, because Handala, it's a boat full of spirit and has a lot of people, a lot of energy from many countries, and a lot of solidarity movements engaged on it. But it's actually a structure of a very old and small boat, and so it has its problems. And every stop we have some technical things that we must solve. So the boat was an adapted fishing boat from 1968 that is now carrying the hopes of a lot of people in a very important mission. So to balance this equation of a very small and old boat with the importance and historical importance of this mission, it's kind of tricky, and we were doing our best every time, so we had to fix many times many parts of the engine and many other things. That's everyday life on an old boat, but we were managing to do everything we needed. But the thing is that we had a technical problem on an engine that would take more time. So on our last leg, when we were about to depart from Malta, we decided that we needed a technical stop to fix this part of the engine in order for it to be safer on our last journey towards Gaza. And so we docked in the next port, which is in Italy. And then in Italy, the boat is being fixed. When we got there, we made a diagnosis of it, and we discovered that to fix everything we needed on the engine would take at least 2 weeks. So whenever there's a bigger delay on our mission, we have to put on the equation to maintain people mobilized in the place where the boat is, or to demobilize people go back to their home countries, keep doing their very important solidarity work, because everyone who is on the board of boat are activists and very engaged activists in their home countries that have a very important role to play in mobilization. And so we had to decide that. In Istanbul, for example, we tried to remain for 3 weeks with 1,000 people mobilized, but it was very expensive and people had other things to do as well. So we demobilized, and it was the right decision, because so far our boats are still not free to go. But for the Handala mission, we know we have a few weeks for the repairs, and we decided to demobilize again. A few people are staying there, but most of the people went back to their home countries, already preparing to return in this 2-3 weeks period. We're still assessing all the repairs and all the things, but people went back to their home countries to keep doing the solidarity work and actually intensify it in order to get back for the last leg. So as soon as we get back to the boat, we are gathering energy in our home countries. We are mobilizing more and more and more. As soon as we get back, we continue right now at the very last leg. So before, we were still going from port to port, trying to get as close as we could. And right now, we are in the last port until the last leg. So when we go back, it's just to go towards Gaza.
And you said that the mission is just to go from port to port and to try and get as close to Gaza as you can. By your estimations and speculations, how close can you realistically get? And just lastly, what's the core message and at the heart of this Handala mission?
We have this situation right now that Gaza not only has been under siege for 17 years, but right now there's a huge movement of military vessels, not only from the Zionist entity, but also from NATO, from the United States, from Germany, from the United Kingdom. So the region is very militarized right now. And as far as our part, we are decided to go towards Gaza. And what we know is that the Zionist entity plans to attack us, but it will be a war crime. So what we are saying is that, like every other flotilla, like for example, the freedom caravans that happened in the United States, from young black people taking on bus and going to the far south where racism was very, very violent, and they would go anyway just to challenge an unjust and illegal law. They would do this anyway, knowing the risks, because they had to put pressure on it until the law changes, or until this oppressive force is so exposed that it cannot sustain itself. So the flotilla will always go, and the mission of the flotillas will always be going towards Gaza to challenge the illegal siege. And we are, of course, we assess the risks, we assess the possibility of actually getting there, we assess even different opportunities, for example, of challenging the complicity of NATO states and other organizations that try to maintain the Zionist entity war machine going, with tankers, fuel tankers, with weapons, cargo ships, and also with military vessels. And we are ready to even challenge that, because they must not be complicit in genocide. So we are always trying to think, Celalo, how can we be more useful to the Palestinian struggle right now? We know that it's important to challenge the illegal siege. We know that the conditions are not very good in our favor right now, because the Zionist entity does not respect humanitarian agencies, does not respect humanitarian organizations. Actually, it's a rogue state that does not respect international law. So we know the dangers, but we are still going, and we say that we are going towards Gaza because it is our original mission, and we'll be always assessing the possibilities of how can we be more useful right now. Would it be to block a ship or something like that? We have all options on our table to discuss how can we be of service to the Palestinian people.
All right, Thiago, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time. And as I mentioned, in our last interview, that we're looking at you very, very closely. We've been checking out your Instagram, and as soon as you guys get on, international waters again, we'll be sure to engage with you. But before I let you go, any message, any last parting shot you'd like to send out to, all solidarity groups all across the world and here in South Africa?
Thank you, Celal. It's important for everyone to be together in this, because what I always try to say is that the Freedom Flotilla is one small part of a very large solidarity movement that is connected with everything we do in an everyday basis. So everyone who feels in the deep of their hearts that we cannot sustain living in a society that commits genocide. We cannot sustain living in a society that is complicit with racism, with supremacism. And of course, the South African people are very fond of this idea of liberty, justice, and equality. And you're an example to the world. Everyone that believes in a society like that, that must be different from what we are seeing right now, should help the flotilla, should help to spread the message of the flotilla, of this very important mission we have. For many of those legs of the Handala, we have South African participants. For the Break the Siege mission that was trying to depart from Istanbul, we had a lot of people from South Africa. So we are connected with the struggle against apartheid in South Africa. The Palestinian people were very connected with the struggle against apartheid in South Africa. And we are connected to the struggle for liberty, justice, and freedom all around the world. We want to not only to be of assistance to the Palestinian people to free Palestine, but we also want to free the world, and we want to live in a better society than this. So please, your eyes on our mission makes us more safe for what we are doing, and it's very important because we are trying to break the media blockade. We're trying to break a boycott from the big techs and social media. So your support and your engagement is very important, not only for us, but also echoing the voices of the Palestinian people, because it's not about us, it's about the people in Gaza right now that needs our assistance, that are living a decisive moment in history that we must be part of it. All generations that will come will ask about this moment and ask, what were we doing? And it's very important that we can say that we are doing our best to change society and stop the genocide and stop imperialism, because it's our mission right now of our generation. Thank you so much, Zanilo.
I really, really appreciate you giving us your time, Thiago. We're going to leave it on that high note until you and I chat again. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
It was Thiago Ávila, Brazilian-based Palestinian activist, and he was giving us insight and update on a mission that they had. I think it has been delayed a bit because of technical issues on that Handala, that small boat that they're trying to drive as close to Gaza as possible in what now is very, very dangerous waters, as you heard there from Thiago, that military from all over the world that are supporting Israel, are doing all kinds of raids in international waters, doing all kinds of patrols to make sure that there isn't any threat to the Zionists and to the perpetrators of genocide. Crazy stuff. But we'll be giving you the latest from that Freedom Flotilla. We'll be chatting with Thiago and all of his other partners that are on that Handala, just to make sure that they're safe and, just get the latest on their spirits as, they try to get as close to Gaza as possible. We have come to the end of that interview. We're going to go for a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be shifting our focus right here on the continent, and we'll be talking about West Africa and what is now known as the Coup Belt, and we'll be focusing specifically on Mali, who are now, I don't know, commemorating, celebrating 4 years of a coup d'etat that happened in August 2020, and we'll be, looking at the current status of the country right now, ever since that military takeover, and just the region in general, the West African coup belt. You have countries like, Mali, Central African Republic, Togo, countries that have, experienced more than 10 coup attempts, which have been recorded in the Central and West African region since August 2020. What's behind that, and what goes on from here after, those coups essentially do happen? Is there interim leadership that comes into place? Is democracy still, the running order of the countries? And are there elections happening in the region? So we'll be dissecting all that and more with Aisha Kaji. She's an Africa expert, and she's also a journalist with a focus on the continent largely. So you don't want to miss this next interview right after this short break.